Hi guys, this is Andrew with Headphones.com. Welcome to the Headphone Show, and for today's video, I'm going to discuss my favorite headphones that I've heard this year. Now, many of you guys have been asking me for a tier list or a ranking or a top, whatever list of headphones that I personally like, and I may do that at some point. But what I wanted to do with this video is I wanted to actually get the opinions of the rest of the team. And for any of you guys who are unaware, Headphones.com and the Headphone Community Forum is where we post all the written reviews, and it's not just me posting reviews there. It's the whole team. So we have, Chrono, who does videos on the channel as well. We have Precogvision, who does IEMs. And then we also have Tyler and a number of other people from the Headphone Community Forum. So with this video, I figured I would ask my fellow reviewers, what their favorite headphones are. And, we would just go through, each of our lists. And that way, you guys don't just get my favorites, but you get, everybody else's as well. It doesn't necessarily mean that this is going to be a list of the best sound quality, the best headphones out there. It's not all just flagships. It's just what we thought were great products that we listened to this year. And it could have been from, previous years when they came out. And lastly, we decided to make this list exclusive because many of us actually have similar preferences to one another. We didn't want to just cover the same headphones. So just because you don't see something in one of the different lists, that doesn't mean that we don't like it or that it wouldn't be a pick. It's just that it's already being covered or being covered by somebody else. I'm going to start it off with Chrono. Chrono, what were your top 3 headphones this year that you heard and why?
Okay, so for me, I'm not gonna lie. I'm pretty partial to dynamic driver headphones. I started off with planars, and over time, I don't know. I've just gotten more used to their something about their transients and decay. Just I enjoy it quite a bit. So for me, some of the most the standout headphones that I really like, ones that I would personally look into buying. I think I'll start off with probably one of my favorite ones, and that's the HD100S. Now, the reason why I picked the HD100S as one of my top 3 picks is that it's one of the headphones that I describe as almost being effortless. It's a very easygoing headphone to listen to, especially now that it doesn't have the treble peaks as being anywhere near as mad as on the original HD800. And it's just very smooth sounding, and it has this very realistic soundstage that creates an ambience that I don't think other headphones I've tried have quite achieved. So I think that in that sub $2,000 price range, if I were to choose one headphone, and I've tried many good ones, I think that would be my personal pick. And then a little bit under the HD100S, one that really surprised me, especially because I wasn't particularly a fan of the Focal Elysia, was the Radiance. It's probably the most comfortable Focal headphone that I've tried. They've come a very long way in improving their comfort. It now has the split headband, which does a little bit better weight distribution, and it's also not as seal dependent. So it's unlikely that you won't have a good bass response regardless of how it actually fits on your head. And overall, I just really like its tuning. It's slightly laid back or warm sounding, but it's very enjoyable. And then I think another headphone that I would buy, and one that I actually own, of course, is the HD600. It's not obviously in the same category of technical performance as the other 2 headphones that I mentioned, but it just has a fantastic tonality, and one that I personally consider to be the most neutral sounding. It's just very natural. So it's a headphone that I listen to very often, and I always use it as my tonal reference. So for that reason, it's one of my favorite headphones, and you can find it at a pretty good price now at around $300. If I had to think of an honorable mention, it would be the Focal Clear. And the only reason why I chose the Radiance over the Clear is that the Clear, the comfort for me was a little bit dodgy because of the spring tension that it has in the cups, and those specific pads, they didn't always form a good seal, and sometimes it would be a little bit heavy at the bottom, so they would put a little pressure on my jaw, and also they wouldn't distribute as well up top. But it's a headphone that I really like, especially after EQ, to make the treble a little bit more even, because it has very good speed, very good detail, and it has outstanding dynamics. So if you really like punchy headphones, that's a great option. But yeah, those are my favorites. Yeah.
So now we've heard Chrono's top picks. I'm going to throw it over to my co-host on the Headphone Show live stream that we do. Tyler, what are your top 3 picks that you heard this year?
Well, top 3 picks, I'm going to base it off of my most used headphones. So that's kind of telling. And so for me, my number 1 most used would be the wonderful Verite Closed. And the reason I use that the most is because, 1, I love the look of it. 2, it sounds fantastic. It has really good comfort. It's got one of the best aesthetics I've seen for my personal taste. The soundstage is really fantastic for a closed back. It has pretty wide throwing stage. The imaging is on par with almost like Utopia levels, but not quite. It's definitely lower than that. But detail, imaging, stage, basically the whole response of the headphone is pretty much fits me perfectly for what I want to listen to on any given soundtrack genre, anything like that. So that's kind of like my go home and safe place in the audio world is my Verite Closed. For my second one that I use the most, another closed back, which is kind of telling, I guess, in that sense when I think about it, is that I tend to be listening to closed backs because of use case. Is the Focal Stellia. And this one, I think, for me, is super fast, very good detail, has the warmth that I think is lacking in the Utopia, which I think the Utopia, for me personally, can be a little bit boring and just not my flavor. And the Stellia seems to kind of bring that more to my liking. Comfort and imaging and stage kind of is not the greatest, but the imaging and the sound quality are really fantastic as well. I believe it's almost to the same level, if not a little bit better on detail than the Verite Closed. It's just lacking some of the staging in that one. And the 3D-ness. The Verite Closed is a little bit better 3D factor. I'm not the biggest fan of the aesthetic for the Stellia in the sense of the colors, but it's kind of grown on me, and I like it just fine. Moving on to my third pick of most used is actually on my head right now, which would be the Cost Porta Pros with Yaxi pads. And these are my everyday carry, do everything kind of little headphones. I take them with me everywhere I go. I use the little dongle for the iPhone or iPad. Use them on my Switch. I use them pretty much everywhere that is portable because they work with everything. They even have a little inline mic for chatting if you need to. The other big piece that I like to use with these or use case, is that I can fold them up and put them into my bag, so they're everyday carry. Like, these literally go everywhere in all my bags, and that they're cheap enough to where I'm not really worried about breaking them because I'll just go buy another set. An honorable mention for me would probably be the SR1A, which I believe is more of like a speaker setup than like a near field in the sense that it's like a near field speakers but on your head. I personally think it beats the Utopia in detail and imaging, and definitely on stage because you can kind of bring out the flaps a little bit wider and get way better staging. I wasn't too upset with the bass with it. Some people don't like the bass, but I don't have a problem with it. I hear people add subwoofers to their chain to kind of give it a little more flavor. I've actually done a preamp with a tube, and it works fine with that. But the biggest barrier of entry and why it's my kind of my alternate choice, or my fourth pick for kind of this deal, would be because I still have to have a special setup for it. You have to bring it out of the thing, plug it into this, very special. I have to turn on my amps for it, which I have two monoblock stereo amps to power it, so you have to turn those on, let those warm up. It's just a little bit more steps to take to get to the music, in which, if anyone knows, I'm not the biggest fan of having too many steps in my chain. And that's mine.
All right, and for those who are unaware, we also have an IEM reviewer on the team. He joins us for the live stream on a weekly basis, but he also writes articles that are published up on headphones.com if you guys want to check that out. But we have Precogvision, who, he's our IEM specialist, and so I'll throw it over to you, Precog. What are your top 3 picks for the year?
Yeah, sure thing. So my favorite right now most definitely has to be the 64 Audio U12T. I just really can't get these out of my ears, no matter how many other flagships that I've had the opportunity to listen to. I think they're
stuck there.
Yeah, pretty much. They strike a really good balance with their tonality. It's more of a U shape, so it's not neutral or anything of the sort like that, but it's just so on point for my preferences, and I think they fly well with anything. And then once you stack onto that, they're pure technical performance, because they're running like 12 balanced armatures, right? They have a ton of detail retrieval, but at the same time, there's a little bit of a softness to their transient attack, which really makes them super easy on the ears, and they just fly well with anything. And on top of that, they also have some of the best bass response in a balanced armature IM. In terms of my second pick, it would have to be the Campfire Andromeda. The Andromeda 2020 at least. I can't speak for previous iterations of the Andromeda. This was an IM that I really wasn't expecting to maybe like as much as I did, as it does, like I just previously mentioned about the U12T, it has one of the better balanced armature bass responses. That's definitely a area where the Andromeda 2020 suffers, but outside of that, the tonality is also pretty spot on, and the imaging, of course, is spectacular on it. It really makes it feel like you are on the stage, sort of, with everything sort of, all those instruments flying around you, and it's just very, very impressive for what it is, I think. In terms of a more budget-oriented option, it would have to be the Moondrop KXXS. This is actually one of my first IMs. It's sort of what got me into the hobby, and I really have a soft spot for it. I don't think it's the most technical IM, even at its price point, but the tonal balance, which is more of a Harman target tuning, is just very, very good in my opinion. It's very easy on the ears, and if you can get around the sort of upper mid-range emphasis that it has, it's just a spectacular IM that does well for all genres. In terms of honorable mentions, it would be my 64 Audio Neo. This is a IM that follows something pretty close to the U12T's frequency response, except it uses a dynamic driver. The sort of trade-off here is that it is not the cleanest IM, most definitely, nor is it the most technical. However, it is very flexible, and you can swap in the M10 module as well to sort of attenuate those bass frequencies if that's not your thing. And it's just a very flexible IM in general that I think will appeal to many listeners.
So for my pick, my number one flagship headphone that I heard this year is the Hi-Fi-Man Susvara. Many of you guys know that's like my favorite headphone that I've ever heard. Unfortunately, it's ridiculously expensive. The reason why I like the Susvara is it's one of these crazy nanoscale flagship planar magnetic headphones when it comes to detail retrieval and speed, and it does all of the things, no compromises in any of the technical aspects. And at the same time, it's the only flagship planar magnetic headphone, like crazy flagship that's in that $4,000 plus range, that in my opinion nails the frequency response as well. For all the other ones that I've heard, there's always something there that doesn't quite work for me, and I find it to be one of the few that's also reasonably comfortable. Many of these other ones are quite heavy, and that's for me something that, while it might be a great sounding headphone, it's a bit of a barrier to entry because I wouldn't be able to use it for a very long time. My second pick is the ZMF Verite Open. That is a headphone that I just happen to use it a lot, and I love it. And it's in part for similar reasons, because I wouldn't say that it's class leading in any one particular category, but it also is really good in just about all categories. So whether we're talking detail, dynamics, speed, soundstage, for all of that stuff, it's a really good all-rounder. And then on top of it, it's also the more comfortable headphone to wear, one of the more comfortable headphones to wear. And so that is my go-to default all-day listening headphone that I'm able to wear for hours on end. And then my third pick is the Odyssey LCD2 F. So that's not the classic. The reason why I like it is after EQ, there's so much potential in this headphone, as far as the technical performance is concerned. And I know not a lot of people are into doing EQ, but this is a headphone where if you do give it a chance and then start to learn how to EQ, it really does shine, and it outperforms other headphones that are much more expensive, I find. And it's also one of the Odysseys that is lightweight enough that I can wear it for a whole day, and it's reasonably comfortable as well. So that's why it makes my list there around the $1,000 mark. For my honorable mention, I'm going to give it to the Rawson Audio Rad Zero. And the only reason why this didn't make it on the top 3 for me for this year was because while it is really good as far as technical performance goes, and the total balance is really nice, I do find that it's still a little bit on the heavy side, and so I'm while I can use it for a decent amount of time, it's not as comfortable as something like the Verite. So that's really the only reason why it didn't make the top 3. But yeah, as far as the sound quality is concerned, I absolutely love the Rad Zero. So there you have it. Those are our picks for our favorite headphones at the end of 2020. I just want to mention though that if you really like a headphone that we didn't necessarily mention, it could be because we haven't had a chance to hear it, but also it could also just be because you have a different preference from what we like. And that's kind of one of the reasons why I like to bring everybody else in, because I know what I like, and I think many of the viewers know the kind of stuff that I like. But it's always good to hear other perspectives as well. And so really that's kind of what this was all about. And for those of you guys who are still looking for a ranking or a tier list of some kind, there is something in the works that will make you guys happy, but you guys are going to have to wait for that. Anyways, that does it for this video. Thanks for taking the time to watch it, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye for now.